Thank you. Wow. You all know how to give a warm welcome.
Southern hospitality.
So you guys get that everywhere, right? Pretty much.
We've done 3 appearances in the last 3 days, and this is definitely the warmest welcome we've got.
Yeah!
Now, don't go bragging about that on Twitter. Just keep it between us.
We have to check the other 2 cities you were at to make sure you didn't say that at their particular venue as well. But we'll take your word for it.
in North Carolina.
Adam Savage, Jamie Hyneman right here for you guys, and an afternoon with the Mythbusters. So this following, what does it mean to you to have this crowd out here, other crowds you've been, other places you've been and visited, and other campuses, and knowing what this show means to so many people?
Well, you know, it's funny, from a day-to-day basis, our job is actually pretty blue-collar. We build most of the things you see us build on camera. We're building ourselves, or with a little bit of support from our very small shop staff. When we're filming, it's just Jamie, me, our cameraman, our sound guy, and our director. So for us, we don't actually ever talk to each other about what it's like to do this freaking show. We don't do that until we come and get in front of a few hundred people. So it's sort of like the most public therapy session you could possibly have. You know, honestly, you guys make us feel like rock stars. Brief periods of time, it's fantastic.
Well, Jamie, there's something wrong with that, right? Being a rock star?
I wouldn't know. You know, I'm still having trouble getting used to the fact that I'm on TV. You know, we're actually interested in the stuff that we do on the show, and from my perspective, the camera is kind of like, you know, all it means to me is that it takes about 4 times as long to do something as it would normally take, because we got to wait for the camera to get positioned and so on.
You got to block a shot, that type of thing, do retakes if you have to do that. You just want to get the thing going.
Oh yeah, no, it's absolutely, I mean, both of us are particularly skilled at working incredibly fast, and that's required because filming what you're doing makes it go incredibly slow. And in the end, I guess we work at about an average human pace.
All right, so your backgrounds are similar and different, I guess. You could say visual effects in many ways, but you guys still branch out a little bit differently. Is that correct?
Well, the commonality is that neither of us has anything approaching a science background.
Right, no science degrees here, unless they're honorary.
Jamie's got a degree in Russian studies, and I've got a high school diploma.
Nice. Yeah.
How about a college? I know what it means when I get a plus for that from college.
So has the Russian studies background helped you out in any of these myth-busting attempts?
What do you know? Yeah, occasionally we get a Russian cab driver that brings us to the show.
Jamie starts cursing like a sailor.
But really, the visual effects background, it informs everything you're doing here, does it not?
Well, and I think for both of us, visual effects was where we ended up after a long time of different and disparate careers. I started out actually as a child actor. I played Mr. Whipple's stock boy in a Charmin commercial. When I was 15, I was Timmy the stock boy. And raining all over the new Charmin, but it's okay, Timmy. It's stronger when wet than any other leading brand of tissue. And then I got into graphic design, animation, theater, carpentry, welding, robotics, and all these different disparate jobs until I found, actually Jamie hired me in my first job in special effects in 1992. And special effects was like, oh, here's where I can apply every useless skill I've ever learned under one heading. And that's the, I mean, you know, Mythbusters is that on steroids.
Yeah, it's a strange thing. I mean, we didn't get to this foundation of knowledge through school, but it's actually what school often intends to do. You know, you want to have a range of classes and so on to not just focus on your area of expertise, but to give you a strong foundation. I mean, I grew up on a farm. I ran a charter business in the Caribbean.
He owned a pet store.
I've been a building concrete inspector and a whole range of different things.
So animal wrangler on your bio there too, right?
Yeah. Well, what it does is very simply, like when we come into...
Animal wrangling's more of a hobby.
He doesn't have that hobby, right?
Sorry. Go ahead, Chuck.
You know, when we come into a situation on Mythbusters, for the most part, we're going into areas that we have no particular expertise with. You know, we've taken on rockets and explosives and all these different things, and that broad foundation allows you to extrapolate the correct way of dealing with things that you have no previous experience with. And so, in a way, that's what college is supposed to do. I mean, you're never going to learn everything that you need to know in college, you know, after you go out into the real world, but hopefully you have this foundation that will allow you to make those leaps.
I'll give you a good example. Anyone see the episode Swimming in Syrup?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, the myth is that you can swim as fast in syrup as you can in water, because even though there's a decrease in forward momentum from the thicker material, you get an increase in push off the thicker material. So we started that one. Actually, it smelled like trouble from a long way off. We get a good sense of the stories that are going to be really straightforward. We're doing the Tom Cruise movie Valkyrie, Hitler bombing next week. And that one's really pretty straightforward. It's like sizes of rooms, power of explosion, metering, burst discs, and that kind of stuff. Swimming in Syrup was one in which we both started to take a look at it about 3 months out and started to call people. And one of the first things we realized was, well, you know, there's different thicknesses of syrup. There's super thick syrup, honey, 40-weight motor oil, half and half. I mean, all of these things have different viscosities. So I thought, well, viscosity must be a value that we can measure. I said to one of the researchers, let's find some meter for measuring viscosity. And after about 2 weeks of asking him repeatedly, like, what is there? And he came back with these, no, that's not quite right. I ended up calling well, it turns out that the field of this study is called tribology, which is the study of viscous fluids. And so I called the president of the National Association of Tribologists, and he started to yell at me because it turns out that viscosity is absolutely not a value, it's a relationship. And we come up against this all the time. We think that we can measure something in an absolute way, and it turns out that actually you can only measure it in a relative way. And viscosity is a perfect example of that. You know, viscosity is something that changes radically. I mean, by 2 or 3, orders of magnitude sometimes, depending on the temperature. So you have to deal with all these relational things, and then you have to figure out how to tell the story based on that. And in the end, Swimming in Syrup, the plot of that show changed every single day that we were filming it, right up until the last test.
And the very end of it, all it amounted to was getting slimed. So,
that grand build-up.
Yeah.